I
Go
can do
for
it.
it.
You want to do it, Jim?
I don't know what's required. I don't remember. I would have made
You read
notes
the
if
script.
It's okay. I can do it. Yeah, I don't mind. I can.
I'll pay attention this time for next time.
Okay.
I usually just focused on what I'm about to say.
Exactly. Yep.
Puppy wants to say hi.
Oh, yo,
Hi.
puppy, dog, you. Hey, just a good dog,
Oh.
hey.
Hello, Texas puppy.
Texas Republican puppy. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And you're a go, Joe.
It's not Joe. It's me.
Or Majid. Okay.
Okay, hold on one second.
I don't have my chat window up yet.
Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 469, recorded on Sunday, September 28th, 2025.
Perpetually tired. I'm Joe.
Pulling my hair out, I'm Bill.
Hopping around, I'm Majid.
To be 45 years old again, I'm Charles.
Now with LEDs, I'm Jim.
Okay, so first up in our Mint news, LMDE 7 GG beta released. We have a couple of things in our security and privacy, and then in our wanderings, well, wait and find out. Then finally, the feedback and a couple of suggestions. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussions, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description at mintcast.org/show-notes. On to the news. So, LMDE 7 GG beta has been released, and this is from the Mint blog via our South African friend with our discussions. On Thursday, September 18th, the latest version of LMDE number 7, codenamed GG, was released as a beta. And the release notes are in the show notes. The beta may contain some critical bugs. They advise only for it to be used for testing purposes and to help the Linux Mint team find issues prior to the stable release. It will be possible to upgrade from this beta to a stable release. Upgrade instructions will be published after the stable release. So that's the Mint news. Has anybody tried it out yet?
Got it running right
Yep.
now. Oh no.
Cool.
Well, yeah, in a virtual machine, and
Oh, okay.
it's
Good enough.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it's probably most people would get just as good a use out of it as the regular version. I mean, it's like I've said before, you're only gonna notice a few very, very slight differences. Like, you don't have the same kind of easy tooling for getting hardware up and running. Like, if you need the NVIDIA driver or something like that, you know, you might have to install that the hard way. But other than that,
Am I right that it doesn't support PPAs?
no,
That's an Ubuntu thing, right?
it's just got the regular. I mean, you can put separate repositories in it, but you're doing it the Debian way, not the Ubuntu way.
Okay.
So
Right, and then you have to, if you want to use Flatpaks, I think you have to add that in manually. And the same thing with snaps, but you have to do that with Mint. Well, you have to make some changes with Mint to make it use snaps.
So
But,
are you saying, so does the software manager not have, because on the mainline version, Flatpak is integrated into the Mint software manager. Is it not on LMDE then?
that's a good
I
question.
thought that was integrated into Ubuntu, and that's why it was integrated into
No.
Mint. But I can't be certain.
No. So it's because Ubuntu have a separate snap store for their snaps. If you want to have Flatpaks on an Ubuntu, because I've done this quite a few times, yeah, you know, you end up having to download the GNOME Software Center and then enable Flatpak to be able to do that. With Mint, because Mint is philosophically against the idea of snaps completely. They've actually ripped out some of the things that
No,
there are there.
You got
when,
one.
when
I mean,
it was
it's-
happening, the whole thing was they were against it installing snaps without you knowing that it was a snap, as opposed to a deb,
Yeah,
which is what
that's true.
Ubuntu did.
Yeah,
Intercepting an
you-
apt
you-
install command and then installing
Yeah,
a
yeah.
snap. That's,
Yeah, which is fair enough. But they've always had their own software manager, from the beginning. In fact, it actually predates Ubuntu's software manager actually by one release or something like that. And they integrated Flatpaks into that so that if you got a fresh install of Mint, you go on your software center, you can download the thing as a deb package, or you can download it as a Flatpak. I assumed that would be the same in LMDE because of the fact that they would have had the same software center, the Mint one. I know that Debian in general, you have to, manually enable it and stuff like that.
Okay. So they've already added back in the Flatpaks.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, because I don't remember having to do anything special to get flat. Now, what I do know, and I don't agree with this, but I can understand to some degree, to a little bit, why they've done it. They've by default disabled showing you, and this is true in both versions, showing you what's their word for it? The unsupported flat
Unverified.
packs.
Is it the
Unverified
unverified?
flat packs, which
Yeah.
means
Yeah.
they're not flat packs that are made by and we're talking some pretty important ones like Audacity. The flat pack for that is unverified, and a few other major project flat packs. They're made by a third party, and so they're being treated like they're potential malware or whatever by.
So I remember this from a couple of releases ago when they brought this in, and I remember thinking to myself initially, okay, this is a good idea, because what you're basically saying is that this isn't made by this Flatpak is not made by the person who actually made this software or the company that made this software. It's packaged by someone else, and so therefore there's always going to be an element of risk because it's a third party that's doing it, and so by default it wouldn't show you those unverified Flatpaks. The problem was lots of the Flatpaks that we use are third party packages.
Very
I mean,
much.
the ones that I remember, there was at one point Chrome. I mean, I don't think Chrome is now, but at one point Chrome, Spotify,
Telegram.
yeah, Telegram, exactly. There's quite a lot, and so I remember when I put it on once, and there is a toggle that you go into the settings, and then you can allow unverified Flatpaks to be shown.
But that's kind of deep
but-
and mixed into the settings, and some people
it
might
is.
be a little intimidated by that.
True, and as I said, but I really understood the thing that we talk about Flatpaks and snaps to an extent and whatever, and widespread adoption and stuff like that. Well, actually, it's not actually as widespread as we might think, because yes, it's third parties that are putting them, into these stores and promoting them, which it's kind of like. You know what I'm trying to say? It just made me realize that we need to be
More
a bit
cognizant
more
of where
careful.
our stuff comes from.
Yeah, more cognizant where our stuff comes from. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That was a very good.
But when you're putting stuff on FlatHub, you're kind of you're contributing to and participating in this big community effort where there's always going to be a lot of eyes on it. And if there was a problem with, for example, the Audacity Flatpak, which a lot of people use because it's just basically the easiest way to get the very most up-to-date version of Audacity, which a lot of people want, including myself. And if there was a problem with that, we would be talking about it. It would be in the news. Somebody would be throwing that
So
out.
all I'd say to that is, well, firstly, you're right when they first put the Flatpak thing in, and you did have to trawl through the settings to enable. They've made that a little bit easier this in the last couple of releases, and I don't know if that's because of people saying that, why is it so difficult to do that? But also, no, you're right that it's unlikely that you'd have really bad stuff packaged as a Flatpak on FlatHub and things like that because of the nature of the platform. But at the end of the day, it's still not a first party thing, is it? And if you're going to say that only thing that we're going to say is verified is that which is first party, then you're going to have this problem, aren't you?
How many debs sitting in the Ubuntu repository are made by the actual developer upstream?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I agree with you.
Look, and they've had
I
issues
agree
there,
with
too.
you.
Yeah.
They've had issues there too. I mean, the concern is that one of these third parties, yes, they're the Flatpak they're coming out with now is correct, but that someone's going to buy them out, take over, whatever, and then they're going to inject something malicious. But you've seen that happen with Debs too. I mean,
Yeah.
so you can't really complain too much.
I did think that it was an unnecessary step for them to do.
But I understand why they did it. I mean, it is the simplest solution that they can implement with almost no thought on how to get rid of, potentially malicious stuff. And people can see that they're doing it. So,
And from their point of view, to overuse Audacity as an example, if you want Audacity, you install it from the default repositories, and you'll be fine. And they can account for that. And I suppose a distribution maintainer has to be held accountable for the security of the software that's available in that distribution.
How many people would they have to hire to go through every single Flatpak
Yeah,
in their
just get-
repo
oh, we got
every
AI
time there
for
was
that
an
now.
update? Yeah.
I mean, do you also think that part of it might be that the team was stung by a bit of criticism 5-6 years ago, when they had this update thing going? I've only vaguely remember it, but I remember there was some stuff in the Linux press about how some updates were being pushed which weren't verified or something like that. Not app updates. I'm talking about system updates. Because I remember Joe Ressington talking about it on one of his podcasts, and I just wonder whether they got a bit stung by the. I wish I could remember it exactly.
There was that, and then there was that. Their forums got owned some years back.
So
and
can you remember exactly what that was? As I said, I vaguely remember. I can't remember the specifics of what was it about the update that was a problem.
I don't remember exactly, but
Okay.
My point to that is any distribution that's been available for long enough, and Mint has been out there almost
Hitting
since
20 years.
Yeah. So any distribution that's been out there long enough is going to eventually get, and the more popular it is, the more likely it is it's going to get owned. That's just the nature of these things, I think.
Yeah. I don't think it was the fact that they got owned that was the issue. It was the fact that one of their decisions was deemed as being insecure. So I wonder whether, because it's the classic thing, you overcompensate. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe I'm just making that up. But I mean, I wonder if that's a thing. Okay. There is another piece of news that Charles wants to bring in. So come on, Charles.
Yeah, I found this kind of interesting. Vivaldi, another alternative browser. I can't remember how much of it is open source or not open source, but basically they're taking
About
a stand.
95%.
Yeah, they're taking a stand about AI. Now, you can look at this and say, well, they're being Luddites. What's wrong with you guys? You need to jump on the AI train. Or another way you could look at it is saying, well, maybe they're taking a slow, methodical look before they jump in. And their thing is they worry about, read the statement. Vivaldi argues that embedding AI assistance in browsers threatens active, curious web exploration by turning users into passive consumers, undermining the open web, publisher traffic, and user autonomy. And the company commits to resisting AI features like chatbots or summarizations unless they support privacy and intellectual property without diminishing users' freedom to explore online. So again, they're taking a stand here. And then there's a statement from the CEO. I won't read it, but it's in the show notes there that, AI, basically what they're saying as I read is that just because AI is sucking the air out of everything in technology, doesn't mean they're gonna jump on the bandwagon just yet. So again, you can take that as being cautious, or you can take it as being a Luddite, or just being a hater, depending on the way you want to look at it. So, but anyway, I just thought it was interesting that they took this stand. But anyway, go ahead, Majid.
Yeah, no, so I was just going to say, we were talking a little bit about this, weren't we, on OTC or Roundtable last week, about how, the internet's just turning into AI slop. AI slop made by AI slop, which is then being summarized by AI to tell you, and then you reply, and then you search, and then that is then also AI'd back to the person.
Let's not gloss over the fact that the only browser taking a stand against this is the one that's not completely open source.
Okay. Look, so, this thing about Vivaldi not being completely open source. No, look, yes, technically speaking, you are correct. It is not completely open source. Do you know which bits are not open source? The trademark of Vivaldi, that's it. Pretty much. And some of their servers. Yeah. No, not the UI elements. They're not. As far as I'm aware, because I've used Vivaldi, I did used to use Vivaldi as a primary browser for a while. The main thrust of the stuff which is not open source is stuff which is trademarked.
I've never used it because it's proprietary nonsense. So
flipping heck, man. Flipping a Bill Stallman here. Yeah. Who's going to go into his wanderings?
I'm just afraid I would love it because the people that use it do love it, and I'm kind of a Phelan Whiteley on that. I don't want to see that it's something I want and then I'll miss it.
So, just as a little preview, aren't you in your wanderings going to be talking about that great bastion of open source, which is Windows 11?
Oh God!
Hold on. What are you running right now? What are you running right now?
No, I'm Mint 22.2. I came close. Okay. I came close to doing. Watch this space. I got more to say about that.
So you can forgive me if I don't take your GNU/Linux free and open source advocacy without a pinch of salt in this particular one.
Yeah. I haven't had time to calm down from it yet.
And there are plenty of open source projects which are also slightly problematic, aren't they? For other reasons. Brave as an example, with its crypto stuff. I mean, I use Brave, but I'm cognizant of it. Anywho, I do like the fact that somebody's taking a stand. I think it also doesn't change it. I think also it's actually a relatively low risk intervention for them because they're not exactly the world's biggest browser. The people who like
they know, hey, we've got a good enough browser. We don't have to latch onto this nonsense.
I agree. I'm just saying that it doesn't. If you're not going to have thousands of people suddenly saying, I'm not using my Vivaldi anymore because I can't chat GPT it. Are you? It's just not that constituency of people doesn't exist.
No.
Do you know what I mean? People who want to use AI and also want to use Vivaldi.
Because I can use ChatGPT and
overlap a lot.
I mean, it's. I
applaud them.
I do. Yeah, I do too.
I agree.
I'm not going to use it, but I applaud them.
Yeah, same. I feel the same way. I mean, I could tell you the other day I was watching television and Dell, a company I've used to buy computers from in the past, they've gone full AI. They have a major commercial on network cable, television, print media. The Dell AI computer built for AI is the tagline, and it was all about AI. So they're just trying to sell, you a new Windows 11 computer branded with AI integrated into it, and this is obviously a multi-million-dollar campaign. So I don't think it's a bad thing if you've got, one browser who's trying to just be contrarian, because they know there's a certain group of people that are skeptical of shoehorning AI into everything.
I can go on a long rant about AI, but I will just direct you to Linux OTC because it seems to have turned into anti-AI OTC.
I can't keep AI out of the conversation on that show. It just keeps.
Yeah,
I don't know whose
and
fault it is.
yeah, and Eric, God bless him. Yeah, he sits there with his oxygen mask on. Yeah, and he will go into a full-on rant about AI slop. Just
I
really
wish it was
quiet.
a mask because I'd like to see him rant and then hang on. get back to it. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think, and so therefore, in the interests of not getting rid of our 2 listeners, we'll move on
God
to
bless
some
him.
security and privacy.
All right.
And again,
So
this is the Charles Cast show.
That's right.
yeah. So security and privacy. Yeah, Mississippi's age assurance law, which was challenged by several companies. One being, I don't know if Blue Sky was one of the challengers of it, but anyway, last month the Supreme Court upheld their law. As a result, the social network has suspended services in Mississippi, meaning if your IP is comes from Mississippi, you can't access Blue Sky. And there's a lot of, as you guys know, there's a lot of churn and burn around, quote, age verification to protect the kids. And that's another dead horse. It's kind of like
will
AI.
someone think of the children?
Exactly. So Blue Guy, there's a link in there about how they responded to it and what they're looking at. And one of the so-called possible solutions is a company for age verification called TrueAge. And Steve Gibson on Security Now was talking about this a couple episodes ago, and I put a link into his reference. But basically, in California, they're using this TrueAge system for California licenses to digitize them and use biometrics. But of course, what could possibly go wrong with a third-party place trying to hold very sensitive information?
Oh yeah, I mean it's just such a fantastic idea. It's such a fantastic idea. It seems that our government has gone on it as well. I don't know if anybody's watched the news, but
exactly.
our government wants digital ID cards so that as a proof of identity, even though to get one of them, you need to give your proof of identity, which is your passport and your driving license, which begs the question: if there are already proofs of your identity, why do you need the third one? But hey ho.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting. Oddly enough, I didn't put it in here, but Spain is getting ready to roll out one of these systems, and I can't think of the name of it because I didn't want to do a bunch of research on it. But basically, in Spain, everybody that's born, I guess, gets a residence ID number, and basically they've come up with a system that creates a private key and a public key to verify. Supposedly, it doesn't store any personal information about you, but it references this certificate, public key and private key to show that the system says, yes, you're over the age of whatever. But anyway, maybe I'll put that in the next one. So anyway, that's what that's about there. So
I mean, I do think, we are lucky to be living in the societies that we do, because there's a lot of countries, who aren't free and democratic, where, a lot of this stuff is forced onto you. And if you don't have it, you can get into big trouble. I remember going to Saudi, and I went out for a walk, on one of the evenings. And after I got back, my who's it? One of the guys I was with was like, did you take your passport with you when you went out? And I went, no. Did you take the hotel details when you went out? No. What were you going to do if a policeman stopped you? I said, why would a policeman stop me? And it's like, okay, you're in Saudi Arabia. Things are slightly different here. You need to have, who you are, what you are, with you at all times, because, you don't look like a white man, so nobody's going to believe you're British unless you have proof of it.
Of course, to be fair, you get pulled over in Mississippi and you ain't got all that stuff. You're liable to look in some trouble too.
Yeah, but you can't necessarily argue back, because the one time when I didn't argue back, but I was slightly short with a police officer in Saudi Arabia. They took my passport and my kid's passports and made me sit in the airport for about 4 hours to teach me that not to be nasty to the guards. And that's when I remembered, God save the king, God save the queen, thank God for England.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that life is perfect in the West. It really isn't. And especially in your neck of the woods, things are getting a bit scary. But you know,
A little bit.
but I think if we can resist some of this stuff, then we should, because it's a slippery slope.
Anybody near Portland right now?
Yeah, as a matter of fact. Yep, fun times are coming back again, just like under the last time that Mr. You-know-who was in office, so...
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be fun times.
Since we're not supposed to be talking politics, let's move
swiftly on.
Sure.
Swiftly on. Did you...
This is mine
okay.
too, the next one.
Yeah, okay,
So,
go ahead, Charles.
NPM packages security brief. So NPM is the standard package manager for Node.js, aka for JavaScript libraries and software. And there's a link in here from Bleeping Computer. And this actually attack is kind of old because I think there's been one or two since then. Basically, some attackers they're able to do get people's credentials to get into GitHub and to upload bad stuff into Node.js. And anyway, one of the people that saw this, and because a lot of these Node.js packages are built into CI continuous development build systems, hundreds of millions or hundreds of thousands of these packages get downloaded. And if you get some bad stuff in there, which happened with this one, things can go awry. So anyway, they're able to caught this one, but I think there's one or two other that come out since then. And part of the thing is if you hadn't updated your 2FA in the last 12 months, they disabled your account until you did that. And this is turning into quite the hunting ground for doing nasty and bad things. So anyway, I'm sure people have heard about it, but it looks like this is going to turn into an arms race trying to mitigate this. And I don't know, maybe they could use some of that AI, aka ML, to try and combat some of this, but we'll see. So.
No, that would be a proper use for it, and then we'd realize that it's not exactly as good as we thought it was, and we wouldn't then be able to, sell it on every single thing. You know what? I'm actually starting to wonder whether we should call security and privacy Charles' security and privacy corner, because you find some good stuff actually. But yeah, no, I mean it is a bit. Oh, yeah, but it's good to be made aware.
Yep. Moving on. It looks like we're going into the wanderings now. Linux wanderings.
Excellent.
And it looks like Joe is up.
Yeah. So time for Linux wanderings. Joe.
Well, I did the migration of my drives in my DAS from my garage computer to my mini rack slowly. Because I didn't want to break anything. I transferred one of the drives over after a couple of rough starts that I talked about last time, but now it is a share that I was able to attach to the Proxmox from Open Media Vault and get it from the garage, or get to it from the garage PC using credentials and FSTab.
Can you find a more convoluted way than this? Because it does.
No. I'll explain it all in a minute, and then you can complain about it being convoluted.
Okay, fine. All right.
Okay, I moved several terabytes worth of data onto it, and I have started the process of pointing the different LXCs to it to start using it for data, and then I realized that there was no write permissions because the LXCs are unprivileged. Now, I understand the need for security in this, but it does make things difficult. I tried fixing things the right way, but because the NAS server is one of the VMs, I can't really use FSTab to make things work, or use that reboot and cron tab the way that I have with some of the other shares on other PCs. Obviously, that's not going to work because the VM isn't up at boot. Now, I was able to do a short-term workaround with my garage PC, using that to act as the go-between. since it's able to robustly connect to the share and provide a share back to the LXCs. That is a terrible solution, though, as it goes from the mini PC to the garage PC and then back again to the mini PC. So lots of back and forth and made it a little bit slow. I've tested a couple of different solutions to make sure that it would reconnect everything on reboot. I tried the FS tab, like I said, and the cron tab, and neither of those did the job without help on reboot. I then did some research and found out about hook scripts, which can be added to different phases of a startup or shutdown of an LXC or a VM, and then I went to work. You can do this either in Bash or Perl, but the documentation for both really kind of sucks. I should mention that it allows for the running of scripts on the host machine and not in the container, which is extremely helpful. I decided to do it in Perl since the setup for it was a little bit more straightforward and the example file was in Perl. The first thing I did was a simple mount, which did not work because at the time it executes on a full restart, the network is not up for it yet. That wasn't that hard to fix. I added a wait before the mount, and that did the trick. So 30-second wait before it mounts, and then it mounts all 5 of the drives. Now I am in control of the permissions and the timings of when it mounts. So it's writable to the things I want it to be writable to. And, because of how I have the share set up, you have to have the user password to be able to actually use it. So then I was able to move the other drives over. All 5 of the drives are on the Proxmox and Open Media Vault and shared out with Samba as needed to various locations. They are searchable, like I said, but you do need the user pass. And I understand that NFS is supposed to be faster than Samba, but I haven't been able to get NFS to work with Open Media Vault yet. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. I will look into it in the future. I was very much able to copy all of my television shows to OneDrive before I migrated over, and then I was able to share the whole thing and repoint my Plex and RStack to it as needed. The speed difference over the network is noticeable, but should not cause any problems in regards to like streaming or anything like that. But it was much quicker moving everything onto that drive from the same computer instead of over the network. I also needed to disconnect both of the 2.5-inch 250 gigabyte drives in order to get all 5 of the 8 terabyte drives attached. So one of the drives is exclusively used by Proxmox for volumes and virtual drives. It's still pretty empty, so I might do a little bit with like Nextcloud setup on there. So I have one empty slot in the DAS, but all of the SATA slots are filled. And I might swap those 250s for some 1 terabytes, and that would allow me to hook them to the other mini PC once I get some adapters, or set up some adapters. With the drives all hooked up and all of my items now on there, I also deployed a Jellyfin server for testing purposes. This is set up on the second mini PC in a VM that I am also using for other things. I can set up the Samba mounts in the FS tab on that one. Seems to work pretty well so far, although I did try to pass through the graphics portion of the APU for hardware acceleration, but that did not go to plan, and it's something that I'll need to follow up on later because I don't want to lose my ability to access it over no VNC. I also finished off the spools of PETG for my 3D printing and moved on to the ABS that I had in storage. I'm happy to say that so far they are dry enough to print with. Still fun trying to work with ABS, and how it warps can be interesting, especially with overhangs. I haven't had any problems with adhesion, but yeah, my overhangs have warped. I might try some different supports and see how much that changes things. I had some very small things to the design, and print and ABS is pretty good with that since it's a bit more rigid. Very tiny piece of one of my old Crusher's headphones was missing, so I had to design it and print it. It took a few iterations, but I was able to get it printed. And I thought it was working, and I had more mods that I wanted to do for the ear cups to make it more comfortable. But yeah, it didn't work the way I wanted. In the end, that 3D printed piece just was not enough to hold it together. By the time that I got it thick enough to be sturdy, it would no longer fit properly. So I had to find a different solution. You can order that tiny little part, but it comes out to $12 or $13 after taxes. So what I ended up doing was I bought the most messed up set of crushers that I could find on eBay for $18, which gets me a whole bunch of replacement parts. And the thing had a bad battery, so what is weird about that set is that neither of the hinges were broken, and almost always with crushers the hinge breaks. The slider assembly was loose on that one though, and the battery just plain wouldn't hold a charge. So it was easier to pull the hinge piece and the screws that I need to fix the other one with the sturdier 3D printed hinges. Worked out great, and I still have a lot of extra parts or the chance to figure out a replacement for that tiny part if I want to fix that other set. Now, this is also in the time frame where my wife purchased me a brand new set of Skull Candy crushers that was on clearance. Pretty cool, since the new ones are all USB-C. But that also leaves me free to experiment more with the old ones and find out what works, see what 3D prints I can do to help improve the comfort as well as the sound. And if I destroy them, it's not really much of a concern. Now, I also need to take apart and rebuild the SteelSeries Arctis 9X that I use in my garage. The one side I had a temp fix for the split ring on came undone, and the other side cracked. These headphones are not meant to be left on a headphone hanger. They will crack under their own weight. So I have 3D printed in ABS the left-hand side of the headphones. I also got the split ring tool that should make it so that I can fix these things properly and have them actually stay together. The 3D printed ear cups are much thicker and I hope sturdier. I'm also thinking if I can add something to the outside of the prints in terms of decor. This is also still a very hard swap to do. The mic does not like to be moved, and there is a lot of solder joins that needed to be tracked to make sure that they ended up in the correct places. I think on the one side it came out to 11 separate really tiny solder joins. I do like these headsets. I'm just not a fan of how easily the housing breaks. They do have some other issues that can pop up after some time, but for the most part, it seems like the plastic just breaks. Now back to the setup for like Jellyfin and Plex on my system. It is rather complex. So I have all of the drives hooked up to the Proxmox machine and passed through to Open Media Vault. But then for the LXCs to be able to use them, I need the Open Media Vault to load up first and have the hook script then attach to the mount locations inside Proxmox. And then the LXCs can access those different locations, and Jellyfin is on the other mini PC that's attached to my mini rack, specifically because there wasn't much on it, and I'm already kind of using up all the RAM and not really all the processing, but definitely most of the RAM on the first system. And then in the future, I also, like I said, need to set up, what's that version of Nextcloud you were talking about, Bill?
The all-in-one Docker image. It's the officially supported way of installing the server on. And
Okay.
from my point of view, as far as I'm concerned, it's brilliant.
Yeah, because the version I'm using now just isn't that good. I don't know why. It is a Docker version, but I guess it's an older one, so yeah.
Yeah. This installing it this way, you're not screwing around with, especially if you want to put it behind a reverse proxy or something. It just works. And switching out things like Nextcloud Office, which is the Collabora LibreOffice, switching that out for the only Office is just switching around a couple of click marks or check marks on boxes, and it's got its own way of managing, keeping the containers up to date and all that stuff. And I don't know, it works out all of the things automatically that I really, struggle to go and fix one thing at a time when I set up the Nextcloud that we're using for our show notes right now is basically running on bare metal, which they offer the option to do that, but it's, you've got to go and work out all of the database and PHP stuff and make sure you've got all the right modules and all that stuff with the all-in-one container. It's just done. But I mean, it's Docker, so you got to go and learn Docker. But I think it's an obvious choice for anybody that wants to self-host anything.
I was looking and I saw that there is not a Docker Compose for it.
There is not. So I put the Docker command. There's two different commands. One if you're running it behind reverse proxy, and one if you're not. And all I did was just threw it into a bash script, because once it started, it restarts itself at every reboot. So I mean, it's not like you have to mess with it all that often.
Right.
You could. I've used some of these tools that you find online to take Docker run commands and turn them into Docker Compose, but I've had mixed results with that. Yeah, sometimes it just, for no reason whatsoever, it just doesn't work. Because, for example, to get this document thing we've got for our show notes working, it relies on a separate Collabora server, which is a document server running that Nextcloud connects to, and it's got its own container, and the official documentation for that shows a very, very simple Docker run command. You try to Docker compose that command, it looks like there's nothing out of the ordinary about it. It's just a run command. It's got it declares a volume within the Docker system, and a command to make it restart every time. For some reason, it just will not run. It fails over every single time with Docker Compose, and I can't seem to find a reason why that makes any sense whatsoever. So I don't know.
I mean, I'm going to be getting into Docker Compose in my wanderings as well. I mean, it sounds a bit Inception-y, doesn't it? A container of a container type of thing.
Well, you're really just calling. It's not a container within a container. It's just containers that are working in orchestration with each other, basically. Mm-hmm. So you've got to use Nextcloud as the example, you've got the Nextcloud actual software container running, but it's also depending on the Postgres database container, and then it's also depending on the reverse proxy container to work out all the TLS and all that to route all the traffic. And then if you've got the document server, it's got another Collabora container running, or only Office, depending on what you choose. And they're not none of them are overlapping. You're just declaring within the Docker Compose that you need to go and get this other image and spin it up, and these containers need to be able to talk to each other, is really all that is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which, it's a lot. I don't know. It's a lot to wrap your head around, I suppose. But once you do, it feels obvious to me. I mean, that opinions abound as to whether or not we should be using things like Docker. Some people say that it's lazy development, because if you run into a situation, well, yeah, sure, but Linux is a fast-moving target that's got a lot of libraries that are changing all the time.
I remember setting up LAMP stacks before Docker.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy it. And then with Docker, I just one line and woo,
all up and running. And you're just left like, what? I could have been doing this the whole time and then not worrying about my database folding over on itself? Yeah. No. So.
Well, before we get completely lost in Docker, because it will come up again in the wanderings.
It will.
If you're done, Joe, I think we're on to Jim.
Okay, first I would like to make the observation that we are all wearing some version of a blue shirt today, and that was not planned.
No,
But,
I mean, I have a
Mine's
thing
gray.
that I wear a different. I have a thing where I wear a different sports top on every single one, because I have an unhealthy obsession with sports tops. So this is the India cricket one, because India played Pakistan and beat Pakistan today. So I'm happy. So that's
Well,
the
it
reason why
counts
I'm
as-
in blue.
Yeah. So anyway, just something I noticed. Maybe next week we all go for green. Anyway, I did a couple of mundane things that I'll just explain briefly. I upgraded one of my desktops to Mint 22.0. I used the Mint upgrade tool, and I found it relatively easy to, because it's used, based on the newer version of Ubuntu, to update all the PPAs to the Noble Numbat, Ubuntu versions. So I'm still all in on PPAs. It was not scary at all to go from an older version of Mint to a new version of Mint and do that. After I did that, I then updated all three of my computers to Mint 22.2. So for the first time, I'm now caught up to date completely. I did some other minor things like set up time shift and back in time as automated backups on all my three computers that are running Linux Mint. So I feel good about that. I set up Warpinator on my local network on all three of those computers to be able to transfer files back and forth. All very easily done. Okay, next, I'm having some trouble, and I may or may not be able to figure it out, but I have one hard drive that inexplicably does not connect to one of my computers any longer. It used to. The computer simply does not recognize it. Tried to get some help online. So far, have not been successful. I don't know if anybody else has run into this problem where your hard drive works on other computers, but not on one.
Oh, it's just on the one computer where it's not seeing it?
Bad SATA
Yep.
cable. Is it
I
an
changed the
external?
cables.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an external. I changed the cables. It's a big 8 terabyte G drive, technically Hitachi.
So
Could it be a permissions thing? Because remember, I had that problem with permissions with some of my drives.
What kind of file system is it?
did you bring up disks? Did you bring up gparted?
Yes. I even tried to fix it by switching it from NTFS to ext4. And, again, I switched the cables. I brought it to another desktop. The other desktop recognizes it immediately. No problem. The one I want to recognize it doesn't know it's there. I brought up, in the command line, nothing.
If it's ext4, it might be a permissions issue. If it's NTFS, it might be because you don't have that. Is that a kernel module now? That NTFS thing?
Built in.
Yeah.
Did you try running a live CD or a live version of Linux and then connect the hard drive? See if it's an issue with the operating system?
Didn't think of that, but, like I said, I did bring it to a different computer, so it's just weird. Why was one computer recognizing it and not that one?
Well, see if it's your operating system by running a live CD and hooking it up again.
That's worth a try. Anyway, that's something I want to figure out because I use this big hard drive as one of my backups. All right, so I'll get on to some more interesting things now, right? I'm using a Firefox extension, which I have many, called Internet Archive Downloader. I don't know if any of you guys read ebooks, but I like to read ebooks.
Yeah. And Internet Archive has quite a lot of...
Yes. And what's nice about this Firefox extension is, if you go to Internet Archive, you could only borrow the book for an hour. And then you have to renew it. And you read it online in your browser, on your tablet or your computer. But this Firefox extension allows you to download the whole book as a single PDF, all the pages, front cover to back cover. And so it's really neat. So that way you don't have to keep logging in every hour. You don't have
Brought
to
to you
read
by
it on
the
the
Pirate
device.
Bay.
I mean, listen, if they're letting me borrow it for an hour, what's the
No, I'm
difference if
with
I
you.
borrow it for 10 hours? It's up there.
That's the reason that they got sued in 2022 was because they weren't forcing people to check back in books or limiting the number that they could check out or limiting the number of times that a book could be checked out.
Right.
So I assume that the 1 hour limit was their quick fix that just hasn't, found a more permanent fix.
Yeah, technically, I think only one person on Earth at any one time is supposed to be able to borrow that particular book. So mostly they have older books, right? They don't have like brand new bestsellers. Otherwise,
Yeah, a lot of their stuff is out of copyright. But then why do they limit you from being able to download that if it's out of copyright?
yeah, I don't know, but I found it to be very handy just to be able to download the book and to my tablet and not have to have that persistent connection, not have to go re-borrow it an hour later. I've never had an issue with, not being able to re-borrow it because again, these are older books. Sometimes they're only a few years old, sometimes they're 20 years old, whatever. But okay, now so that's the first discovery is I highly recommend this browser extension. If you like books and there's something on the Internet Archive that you can't get elsewhere, it's neat. Now, that brings me to the next discovery, right? Unlike regular ebooks you would get from Amazon, whether you're purchasing them or you're borrowing them from the library, which are typically in some kind of file format. Amazon is .azw or it could be .epub or .mobi. These are made to be able to be read on a small device like a Kindle Paperwhite, 6-inch device, or you can read them on like an 8-inch device, like this is my Fire HD 8. It fits quite well in your hand, like a hardcover book. The Kindle Paperwhite, as you just saw, is a little smaller, 6 inches. It's very thin. And those devices are made for reading. And when you download these files, the text can flow and move. So you don't need a big device, right? Many people use these small Kindle devices for exactly that reason. They're light, able to be held easily in one hand, and you don't have an issue being able to read these at any size. You could change the font size, have it wrap. It works beautifully. Now, when you're downloading PDFs, however, that are scans of the book pages, what you've got, there's no resizing the text. It's literally a scan of a page, including the grain on the page, any stains on the page, stray hairs that were scanned along with the text. And the books, of course, every page of a book has a margin. So you're losing 20 to 40% of the page. The text is in the middle. You can't resize it, except you can pinch and zoom the page. So my next discovery is an Android app called Librera FD, Librera FD. You can download it from F-Droid. And what Librera does, it's a book and PDF reader, and you can bring it up on your tablet. And what that allows you to do is you can zoom in on the page and kind of crop out a lot of the margin of a PDF so that the text fills up most of the page. And the most important thing, unlike other apps, when you swipe left to advance to the next page, it respects and maintains that level of zoom. So to me, this was groundbreaking because it allows you to read PDF books properly zoomed in. So you're cropping out all that dead space, and it makes PDF books readable on smaller devices. So I highly recommend Librera FD if you're an ebook reader and you're stuck with a PDF. it's great to read on your smaller screens.
Yeah, I mean, I've just checked. It's on F-Droid, as you say. It's also on the Play Store, and they've also got a website if you want to get it from them directly. I've just checked.
Okay.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So yeah, it's a great device. All right, next. I acquired a Fire HD 10 tablet. Now that's a bigger size tablet. My dad gave it to me.
Yeah, 10-inch, isn't it?
It's 10 inches. I immediately found that it's really unlike the two devices I just showed you, the 6-inch Kindle, the 8-inch Fire HD tablet. It's just too big to comfortably hold in your hand. And this includes, even with a hand strap that goes around it, and you try to hold, your hand behind it like this, it's awkward. So I think what I'm going to do with that is I got a little USB keyboard, a mini keyboard. I'm going to try to maybe put it in my kitchen or bedroom and use it as a device somewhere else outside my office, because I found it just to be a little too awkward as a handheld device. So
you can
that's
use it as a second screen for your computer.
I'm surrounded by screens here in my office, so I'm trying to find some other place, some other reason to use it. So yeah, it's another device that may have some use elsewhere. Next, I have my phone here. This is a Google Pixel 2 XL.
You finally updated it.
No, well, maybe soon. I've loved this phone. It's been working great for me for 7 years, right? And I even love the theme. I love everything about it. However, the battery life is getting worse and worse and worse and shorter. It's not bulging yet, but we're talking like an hour and change of battery life. Now, I'm able to live with that because I'm usually plugged in here at my desk. I'm in the car. I've got a car charger. It's doable. However, my dad gave me my mom's old Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. That's only about 2 or 3 years old.
That is a good phone. My son had an A52s, which is basically the same thing. My wife had an A55. They're good devices. I think they're a bit underrated, actually.
Yeah, it's a mid-range Android phone. It's certainly a lot newer than my Pixel. So I'm experimenting with it, trying to get comfortable with it. I bought a case for it, setting it up, because I'm very particular about like everything about the phone. I've been using this for so long. The way I interact with it, it's tough to change, right? You feel like you're out of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one good thing in it about Android, in that you can just put another launcher on there. You know what I mean? I think the one that I used to use, and I think a lot of people used to use, was Nova Launcher, but that's recently been it's closing down. It's dying a slow death. There's the developers have left, and it's quite complicated, but which is a shame because it was brilliant. And I'd actually set up certain because you can back up your home screen, and then if you then get a new phone, you can then download Nova and then just take your backup over, and then it will just bring it all out exactly the same as it was on the previous phone. And also, if I've had a phone which is like Samsung or OnePlus or whatever, and I want that kind of Google Pixel experience, I'd managed to make a Pixel kind of look through Nova. There's guides on the internet on how to do it. Right. It's not particularly difficult. And it was really, it was really good in that sense. Now, as I said, because it looks like it's getting shut down and dying a slow death, I've started looking at other launchers that are around. There's one called Lawnchair, as in LAWNCHAIR, Lawnchair, the bit of a play on words. That is very Pixel-like. Smart Launcher is another one. And Hyperion launcher. These are all ones which give a kind of, in inverted commas, stock pixel type of look. So the only issue that I don't know if you have, but you might have, is if you set up your phone using the One UI launcher that Samsung have, they won't allow you to export those settings to another launcher. So, which means that if you've spent a long time, getting your Samsung exactly the way you want it, it's not going to be as easy to transfer to a different launcher. But from what you're saying, you're going to be basically just putting it on straight away from the beginning, isn't it? And so you can kind of just set it up just like that on,
And if you
one of the other
switch it to
launchers.
another launcher and switch back, you lose everything. It's something I noticed on mine.
On Samsungs, yeah. Samsung don't make it easy.
They don't want you messing with that.
No, I mean, because even there are some launchers like I think Smart Launcher is one of them, which does allow you to import from a different launcher, but Samsung's One UI is not one of them. I think it allows you from some of the Xiaomi and the OnePluses, but anyway, I think, and this is just Samsung they want to just protect their thing, innit? So yeah, I'll check out some of those actually. This is the one advantage. Well, there's lots of advantages as well as problems, but there's lots of advantages with Android when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. I'm trying to get comfortable with. I started just in the Sense UI, the Samsung's
One UI.
I think that's what it's called. Oh, One UI. Excuse me.
Yeah.
One UI. Right. I'm trying to get comfortable with that. And
Sense UI was HTC's one from back in the day.
That's right. I used before the Pixel. I had an HTC phone. That's why I said that. I love that phone too, but they're out of the phone business. HTC.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're basically. Google basically bought most of them and amalgamated it into their Pixel division, and so in a sense, HTC lives on in the Pixel, but yeah, the company still exists. Apparently, they still sell phones in Taiwan, but it's a bit of a fall from grace. I'm actually going to get to that actually when I get to my wondering. So I'll leave that.
I know this is a Linux podcast, but I'm sure all of us spend a significant amount of time on our phones, and since Android is kind of based on Linux, yeah, it's worth discussing because after so many years of being so comfortable to change, I'm like looking at everything with with my eyes, in a different way now. So I think I can get used to One UI, but specifically, there's one app. I don't know if you guys have ever had an app that you're just in love with, and then it goes away or it stops working on newer, devices, and that's where I'm at right now. I use a calendar on this Google Pixel. I used to use it on the HTC before that. So we're talking like nearly 15 years I've been using this app. It's called Calendar Pad. To me, it is it's free, although there was a paid version. It is the best calendar, mostly because it just fits more on the screen. Like when you click on something,
density,
you could see. Like it's probably hard to focus on that, but it just fits more than the regular Google Calendar or other calendars where you can only fit 5 or 6 entries. This can fit like a whole bunch of stuff, and it just. I also love the way that the month view, which is what you're seeing here, I can click on the day and, the agenda list pops up. I got used to this. I look at this all day long. I use it as my calendar and my task manager largely for day-to-day type tasks. And unfortunately for me, I went and looked for it in the Google Play Store and it wasn't there. And then I, Googled it and I found the developer's website, and he said that on his website Google said my source code was too old and I have to put it they won't accept my app anymore. So I downloaded the APK from his site, which I thought would work, but unfortunately unlike Android 11, which is what the Pixel's running, Android 15, which the Samsung phone is running, it will not install, even though I enabled developer options and all that. It simply is not compatible with newer versions of Android.
Yeah, I remember I used to have a calendar app called Business Calendar. And it's very similar to what you're describing, as in, that kind of, you can get a month view. There's a lot more information on the screen at any one time. I also use my calendar as a to-do list type of thing. And then, yeah, I think there was an Android version. I can't remember if there was an Android version that it wasn't compatible with, or there was some other reason that I had to stop using it. And then I found the Samsung Calendar app quite useful. I mean, I know that a lot of Samsung's apps can lead a lot to be desired, but actually, I was able to get most of the functionality in that, and you can download it for other phones as well. So I've weirdly found myself using the Samsung Calendar app. So as I said, I think again, just a thing to look for. But there's lots of different things out there. It's just annoying that if they're not compatible anymore, you kind of have to move around. I mean, I had this problem with podcasts. Every podcast player I seem to flipping either get shot by Google, or the developer decided to get rid of it, or something or the other. And I had to keep moving around. Which is a bit annoying, but hey ho.
Yeah, when you get used to something, it sucks to change, and especially something that you use all day. I did find a couple of like FOSS alternatives. There's one called ETAR, ETAR, and Fossify Calendar on the F-Droid store, and they're okay. They're kind of similar to Calendar Pad, but not quite as nice. Again, mostly because everything's just bigger. You can't fit. Sometimes I'll have 12 or 13 items, on my agenda view. And with Calendar Pad, you would see them all on one screen. With Samsung's calendar and even ETAR or Fossify, you got 9 or 10. It's not quite the same, So anyway, that's something I may have to, because I'm not a developer. I can't, make my own. So I may have to get used to one of these other calendars eventually. So that's just a very first world problem. But yeah, that's something I spent hours on this week playing with my phone. All right, so now I'll move on. You mentioned podcast apps, Majid.
Oh, yeah. I've noticed this as well, actually.
Yeah. I use a podcast application on my phone, and I use the web version on my desktop called Pocket Cast, and I like it a lot. A lot of their users were complaining this week that on the Android app, they started incorporating a small ad.
Yeah, I noticed this ad as well,
in the UI. Now, if the people that were very vocal in complaining about this, probably justifiably so, years ago, they actually paid money for the app. It was like $10, a one-time purchase. And those people felt shafted by this recent decision. Now, there are some people that actually pay their monthly fee for the premium version, which I do not, and I'm using the free version.
Pocket Cast Pro or something it's called, something like that. Yeah,
it's about $45 a year. I don't pay for it, so I'm not that upset by it because I never paid for the app. I'm not part of the premium, and really, how much time do you spend looking at the podcast app on your phone? You just click, make your podcast play, and then you're listening to it in your car or on your headphones, or it's, to me, it's not that big a deal, but it is another example of and shitification, as we've talked about before. And
have you ever tried AntennaPod?
I did. AntennaPod is I believe it's free and open source.
Yeah. So it's one of these things that you always hear on other Linux podcasts. What apps do you use? I use AntennaPod because it's FOSS. And I actually use AntennaPod and Pocket Casts. You might say, why do you have 2 podcast apps? Why do you need 2 podcast apps?
Welcome.
Because I keep slightly different things in the feed on each one. And then, so if I want to listen to, I don't know, some technology one, I play one of them. And if I want to, my current affairs or whatever, I have that on the other one. And, I could do them all in one if I wanted to, but I just like having 2 players on there. Do you know what I mean? In the middle of an episode, I can just keep going. So, But Antenna Pod is a little bit janky, and sometimes things don't work. And for some reason, mintCast doesn't seem to work well on Antenna Pod. Don't ask me why. For me, anyway.
Are you still trying to stream it every time instead of download it?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I
because
just don't...
everything else streams fine.
I think it's because you're trying to stream it from archive.org. Because
maybe.
archive.org has got a little different method of I don't know.
Okay.
But that's probably why.
I use Audio Bookshelf for my podcatcher. So it's only saved on my server and not saved on my phone. So I'm still streaming it. But I'm streaming it from my server at home.
Right.
To my computer. And then whatever device I'm on, I log into my Audio Bookshelf and it saves my position. So
yeah.
Yeah, what I find I like about Pocket Casts compared to Antenna Pod, Antenna Pod's great if you only listen on your phone, right? Free and open source, it works wonderfully. But what makes Pocket Cast so great, in my opinion, is that it's proprietary, mind you. But if you're not offended by that, the sync between multiple devices is spot on. You could listen to 20 minutes of an hour-long podcast on your phone in your car, right? Then let's say you walk in the house, park your car, and boom, now you're home. You don't want to listen on your phone. You want to continue on your desktop in the web, in the browser. You could go there to your browser and hit play. It will find exactly to the second where you left off on your phone, on your browser, on your computer, or vice versa.
Same.
And most podcasts don't have that very precise, immediate sync that you get on Pocket Cast. That's why I'm willing to put up with the little ad.
Audio
even Bill, he probably won't take it because it's proprietary, but the rest of us can completely see why that's a good idea.
So yeah,
I don't have any trouble with Antenna Pod. I've heard people. It's a little bit. Some of the settings to get it to, the way it differentiates between default settings and each show having its own settings, and I didn't like the way they took away the refresh button from the top of the window. But I've been using it for years as my one and only, and I do really only listen to podcasts on one device. I hadn't really thought of it that way until he said so. I might listen to it somewhere else, but I've Bluetoothed my phone to some other speaker or something device to.
So that's the main device, isn't it? Where it's actually
that's my media consumption device. So.
Yeah, I've been through so many of these. Do you know what I mean? There was the Google Reader used to be a podcasting for a bit. Player FM had that great sync thing as well, and then that became paid. Google Podcasts was there for a short minute. There's a lot of Podkicker Pro. That was a good one. So there's loads of good ones out there, I suppose. If you're that offended by Pocket Cast's proprietariness, Bill.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just poking the bear.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I tried several, but yeah, for that. And by the way, on the desktop, there's no ad. So if you play in your browser, you can even be in FreeBSD, whatever. A browser's a browser, so there's no ads there. And I do like to listen to podcasts at home. I got nice speakers hooked up to my desktop here, so for me, I'm sticking with Pocket Cast despite the recent controversy. All right, so
I can never put anything on speakers because my wife is like, no, why have you got to do this? So I'll go around all the time with headphones on, and then she wonders why I can't hear her all the time. It's like, come on, man. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, when you live with multiple people, headphones are a thing. When you live by yourself, like me, I could do what I never wear headphones except when I'm doing this podcast. So, anyway, I'll move on to the next thing. I mentioned this before, but I now have a few weeks worth of history behind me. The Tableau 4th generation DVR for my over-the-air television consumption. It's working in parallel with the Recast. So, because I have a splitter, from where the antenna comes in my house, I have a powered splitter. So they're backing each other up. So if one fails, or the other one will hopefully work, and that system's working well for me. I'm quite happy with it. Now it's September, the traditional return of the new TV season, so I'm watching Jeopardy and whatever other shows I'm getting in beautiful quality straight through the airwaves. They did make an offline mode now, so if by chance your internet is down, you can still be able to stream your shows over your local network. So that's I like to see that continued development that's friendly to the user. And and considering that there's no ongoing fee for the program guide, which you get 2 weeks worth, I give it a recommendation if by chance you're looking for a over-the-air DVR. All right, next. I discovered, I read something online. It's on techspot.com. Recent Windows updates has broken Blu-ray and other protected video content playback. So if you're on Windows 11 or Windows 10, I guess, your recent Windows updates may have broken the ability for your computer to play Blu-ray. So I don't know. Am I the only person here that actually has a Blu-ray player in their house?
No.
No, I've got one as well, but
okay.
This is, but then it's on the PlayStation. That's what we if we use to watch any Blu-rays through that. Sorry,
make
if
MKV
we want to watch any
and
Blu-rays.
VLC.
Well, I think he's going to get to that bit next.
I'm leading up to this. It's two news articles.
You've taken his thunder, Bill.
Oh, well, you're the one that interrupted him, not me. I was just playing along.
I did ask you guys. I like to make it collaborative. I was just curious before I didn't want to just monologue. I thought I would ask you guys. But anyway, so yes, I have a set-top, a $50 LG set-top player connected to my TV. So when I borrow Blu-rays from the library, I can play a Blu-ray or a DVD directly to my TV, not involving a computer. I'm good. I also, however, have a laptop that has a Blu-ray/DVD player in it. I've got a desktop next to me that has an internal Blu-ray DVD player. So the Windows story leads to the next thing. I discovered this article from OMG Ubuntu. How to watch Blu-rays in Ubuntu and Linux Mint with menus using Make MKV and VLC. They have, in this article, posted in the show notes, they explain using Make MKV, which we've talked about before, and using VLC, and you have to download a couple little things, dependencies.
A couple plugins, yeah.
For the first time, I was able to actually successfully play a commercial Blu-ray that I borrowed from the library directly on my laptop in VLC, like magic. You'll just follow the instructions in that article, installing it, Make MKV, and you got to download a few little dependencies, and then there's one line of code you have to do to let VLC work with Make MKV, and it miraculously works, something that you may not be able to do in Windows anymore.
What it does is it links up the AAC library. It creates a dynamic link so that VLC can go and look for Make MKV's encryption libraries that come with that app, and then it can actually just works because Make MKV has been they've owned Blu-rays since the beginning. I've been using that little piece of software for a lot of years. I actually paid for it about 10 years ago, and probably ought to send them some more money because it's been really useful. But yeah,
they've been in perpetual beta for like a decade.
Yeah,
but good for you.
Yeah,
for supporting them.
It's $50. I mean, I just got to thinking how many times I've used it because I used to get Blu-rays. I shouldn't probably talk about this, but I will anyway. Get Blu-rays from the library, like you said, and I don't like copying. I don't like pirating. Let's use the word archiving with Make MKV and then shrink it down with Handbrake, and I call that Make and Break. And then
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Thanks, Majid.
Yeah.
You're my only friend.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the library. I'm a big proponent of
Yeah, love it.
Blu-rays or DVDs if you don't have a choice. Number one, these streaming services are just getting worse and worse. Not only is the price going up, but they're putting more ads. When you go to watch a movie, when they feature like a relatively new movie on Prime, on HBO Max, unless you're paying the super duper premium, no ads version, which is even more expensive, you're getting tons of ads. It is so annoying. You're watching a movie and you get interrupted 5 or 6 times. There's no ads when you
How do you like how Prime handled that, where they gave you the ads for a while and let you soak on it for a while, and then they put this thing on the screen? Hey, by the way, if you want to get rid of these ads, it's another $3.99 a month. And everybody could not get to the OK button fast enough, and they knew that was the case.
Yeah, and Google had to, pwn uBlock Origin.
Oh God. Well, that's what you get for using Google.
So yeah, we got to stay on top of these services, and
they nickel and dime us to death. They really do.
Yeah, I'm so happy about the library. I get so many movies there and great quality. I think more people should use them, and they're there to be used. So, lastly, the last thing I had to say, you're not going to see it here on this podcast because this is a daytime podcast, and I do have my beautiful window there in the background, right there. Yeah. But I did get some cool LED lighting. So if in the evening, unless when I make the occasional podcast appearances elsewhere, I shut the blinds and the doors, and I've got some really cool accent lighting for my deep background. And I just thought that was pretty neat. So someday, if we ever do a late night podcast, you'll see it. I don't really feel like closing all the blinds and showing it off here. I'd have to
You are a digital creator.
And by the way,
so that's it.
It's a nighttime podcast for me because it's dark here.
Yeah, there is that.
Just one quick thing. Speaking about Windows breaking the Blu-ray there on a recent update, Stacey Higginbotham, who used to be on Leo Laporte's podcast network, worked for Consumer Reports, and she wrote an open letter to Microsoft asking, you'll get a kick out of this, Microsoft to extend Windows 10 support, security updates. Basically, the premise is that other OS, they got 10 years and Windows 10 didn't get that. So, but anyway, I think she's blowing smoke. I don't think they're gonna.
But it has got 10 years, hasn't it? 2015 to 2025. It's 10 years, right?
Yeah, I don't know. There was that plus some other factors she put into it in the letter. But I just thought it was interesting that she's a policy fellow and tech advocacy for Consumer Reports now. But anyway.
Yeah, I was just going to say I hadn't really heard of her.
I can't believe we haven't heard the FSF speak up and talk about open sourcing Windows 10. Because
it already exists, isn't it? React OS, remember? The reverse engineered OS.
That's Windows XP.
Yeah.
Anywho, I suppose now it's time for my wanderings. So I'm back to work. Well, sort of part-time. I'm still on my phase return after my little stint in the hospital as a patient. People are generally happy to see me, which is a good thing, rather than, damn, we wish you'd died, which is what I was expecting. I also did a health promotion event as well at a local Islamic center, which was quite well received as well. So anyway, that's the foreplay over. Now on to the main bit. So, whilst listening to old Linux OTC podcasts, because they are really good for getting me off to sleep, I remembered that I needed to change the CMOS battery in my Mint box, which and I'd bought all the stuff, and then obviously for one thing or another, I'd not got round to doing it. So I did, and so I've got so this box is a HP Pro Desk, one of those kind of X Enterprise thin, mini PC type things, and it was remarkably easy to do it, actually, to my own surprise. I thought I was going to break something. I did wonder whether I should change the SSD while I was there, but then I thought, can't be bothered for that. onto the server. Oh, the server. This server. Okay, fine. Well, the one good piece of news. Well, actually, there's a couple of good pieces of news, to be fair. One is that I had thought that this motherboard in this server, only one of the RAM slots worked. No, they both work. I was just buying the wrong RAM. As Bill, told me, you will always end up buying the wrong RAM at some point. And so that's what I've done. Once I bought the right one, it was fine. So now I have 24 gig.
I've got a drawer
RAM
full of the wrong RAM over there.
That and M.2 drives. Sooner or later, you buy the wrong M.2 drive.
Yeah, and I've got 2 of the wrong M.2 drives here too.
So what I mean, the good thing about that is they just does show that the second slot does work, because I always thought that the second slot didn't work. But anyway, so as I've mentioned before, I've got Open Media Vault running on this server because I thought, well, I just need it as a kind of a NAS. And I had Docker is easy, they said. Do loads of stuff on Docker. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. Docker Compose is so easy, said Bill.
Never said it was easy.
And, well, actually, I remember what you said. There's a non-zero chance you might get annoyed, is what you said in one of the messages, which I thought was a good way of saying it. But anyway, after multiple discussions with Bill and going around the houses, I finally got Jellyfin to work. Finally, because the mistake that I was doing was that I was trying to set it up all via the command line and not using the Open Media Vault tools. So now Jellyfin works. Brilliant, fantastic. But now this means that I can only, if I'll do anything else, I have to do it using the Open Media Vault way of doing things. And when the ZFS pools that I've got here are my backup, so I've not only have they got all my media, they've got all my pictures and my photos. And then Bill had been talking about image, and I'm sure he's going to talk about it in his wanderings as well, but he's been talking about that to me, outside of the podcast. And I thought, well, maybe I'll try that as well, because that's a Docker Compose. And now that I've figured out how Open Media Vault deals with it, couldn't get it to work. And again, I got Bill to have a look, and Bill couldn't understand. I couldn't get it to work. I did manage to get it to work by using their experimental script that they have on their website. So if you go on the image website, there's an install script that they have, and that does work, except it only works on it only sees the SSD that it's been installed on. It won't see my ZFS pools, which I thought was a bit weird.
You have to declare that in the environment file.
So I thought I had declared it in the environment file, remember?
Right, so you started from scratch with that script, though. That script made a whole new environment file.
Yes, it did, but then I in that environment file, I did the changes to, where the data was. And
did you take that dot away?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did take the dot away. I remembered. If I kept it with the dot and library and stuff like that, it would find it, except it won't find the ZFS pool. It would just find the hard disk, as in, the install one. Anyway, so then this kind of made me think, you know what? I wonder, maybe I should get rid of Open Media Vault and go to Ubuntu Server. And then the minute I said that out loud, I'm like, are you an idiot? You finally got this damn thing to work. Okay, yes, it's only Jellyfin. But that was one of the main use cases for it. So why don't you just leave well alone? So
and you didn't think to yourself, I should set up Proxmox.
Look, man,
he had the Proxmox kernel on there, and
I had that Proxmox kernel, yeah,
and it bricked at one point because it.
Yeah. Well, I thought it had bricked it. Thankfully, it hadn't bricked it. It just kernel panics. I just went back to a previous kernel and it was fine.
Did you know that you could install Open Media Vault on top of Proxmox and then install image separately?
Yes, because I know. Yes.
Yeah. You might know somebody that has done something similar.
Yeah. I know. It's ticking some neurons. That is tickling some neurons. But I suppose now that I'm going back to work, maybe I haven't got as much time to sit at home and fart around on the computer.
It's still part-time.
Yeah, true. If I was to just export the pools, I'd be able to import them back in relatively easy, wouldn't I, if it all went wrong?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point, isn't it?
You can't really screw up ZFS without using ZFS's tools to do it.
Okay.
Honestly.
So
You
maybe,
literally the tool to get rid of a ZFS pool is zpool.
It sounds so much worse when you say it, Bill.
What's Zed?
Yeah.
I've gotten the people that I hear the most talking about ZFS are English people or Canadian, and they use the word ZFS, and I've just learned that that's just the name of it.
You have been groomed and manipulated.
Yeah, I would not,
if I was usage of the letter.
I would not incorrectly call a Z a Z, or anything like that.
Yes, because it's always a Z. Anywho, I better move on.
Yeah.
Okay. So distro hopping. Haven't done some distro hopping for a bit, so let's do a bit of distro hopping. Why not? Now that I have a separate.
So
machine
you could
that I
take
can
the
mess
time
around.
that you spend on distro hopping.
Yeah, but I don't take that much time. Distro hopping is so quick nowadays. Do you know what I mean?
You know, if you were running Proxmox, you could just spin up a VM. No VNC into it, and then just nuke it afterwards.
Yeah, you know, there's that thing Debbie does Dallas. This is going to be Magic does Proxmox, isn't it? Anyway.
Next thing you know, you'll be talking about LXC running your Docker containers and all this convoluted flow charts and everything you got to draw just to understand how all this is laid out.
Anyway, as I was saying, distro hopping. So now that I have a dedicated device which I can do so without having to worry about, my data and stuff like that, I've been doing a bit more. So I thought, let's try Ubuntu Unity. Just because, it's been a long time since I've checked that project out. And it's fine, but not everything works. It's clearly still stuck a couple of years ago. I mean, the fact that it even exists, and Rudra, the guy, he must only be about 16 now. It's, yeah, I mean, there was some statistic that he was born the year Unity first came out or something like that. Which is just kind of, I mean, you can just never compete with that, can you?
No.
It's like, what have you done by the time you hit 45? That kid at the age of 15 had written his own distro. In fact, he'd written 3 distros.
You get to be my age. Can you move objects with your mind and things like that?
Yeah. Anyway, so I tried that out, and yeah, it's good as, it's not something that you could use long term. It's good as just a nostalgia trip, but no. Pop OS. So I had been wanting to try out the Pop OS Alpha. So I got the Pop OS Cosmic Alpha. I tried it out. It looked fine. It was an alpha. It was very keyboard centric. So I decided to get rid of it. Unfortunately, this was the day before the update to the beta came, which apparently has made it a lot more usable. So I didn't actually get to check that out. I've seen a couple of videos, though, which show that it's a surprisingly complete experience for a beta. So at this point, I thought, well, how can I punish myself even further? So I decided to go back into CachyOS, because I do want to be able... I do like that little bit of arch spice in my life. I mean, I've not done anything with it. I've just literally just did it yesterday. I haven't had a chance to kind of sit around and mess around with it. I do prefer GNOME, though, on laptops. It does work. I've just got used to it now.
Yeah.
I've got used to it now. On the Snapdragon laptop, which I've heard that, again, there's been more work that's been done on it and on Linux support for it. And I was actually quite heartened to find out that in the latest Snapdragon Summit, they talked about the next set of Snapdragon X Elite, X2 Elite laptops. So it's and there is even some rumors about Google coming out with a Google Pixelbook running Android on a Snapdragon chip. Why is that relevant to a Linux podcast? Well, it just means that they're likely to get there's likely to be improvements in the Linux support. Because this is my worry, that if they just completely canned the whole project, then I'd be left with a very nice laptop, but I can't run Linux on it. But then I remembered, WSL exists. And so I managed to get WSL working on it. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with that. I mean, it's nice that I've got it, and I managed to run Firefox in Ubuntu in Windows. But as someone who's not a developer or a sysadmin or anything like that, I don't know whether it's something that I'm going to be able to utilize more than just as an academic exercise. If somebody can come up with some good reasons for it, for me having it, that'd be great. One of the things that I would, Joe's talked a lot about, emulation on Steam Deck. So I thought I'd try and get in on the emulation game, and I was trying to use Emu Deck. I couldn't get it.
It's a bit of a pain to get set up.
Yeah, I mean, I got the thing set up, but I couldn't get the ROMs onto. Well, I got the ROMs onto the SD card, but it couldn't see them. And again, I don't know why that is. And so I'd kind of left it on kind of pending. So I've now wondered whether actually maybe I'll go back to RetroPie, because I used to run RetroPie on a Raspberry and a Raspberry Pi 3 and 4 that I used to have before. And I do have a Raspberry Pi 400, which at the moment is not being used for anything. So I'm thinking about going back to RetroPie. But then I also, I was mainly an Amiga games player in the 80s and 90s. And there is this thing called Pi Amiga, which is RetroPie, but more, it's set the whole thing up to just mainly be for emulation for Amiga games. And so I might go down that road. There's a couple of really good guides, actually, which maybe I should have put in the check this out, by a guy called Dan Wood, who's quite... he's well known in the retro, especially Amiga space in the UK. Anyways, and lots of videos and things. He even uses the latest versions of Amiga OS on semi-new hardware, which is that's one hell of that's some nerdism there. So I might go for that. My son needed a device, so I bought. So I gave him my old. Sorry, go on.
Oh, speaking of the EMU deck, I do have mine set up, and the last few days I have been playing, one of my favorite games of all time, the Sega Genesis version of Shadowrun. So that's been taking up my time lately. When I'm hanging out with my wife while she's playing Skyrim, so she'll play Skyrim and I'll be playing Shadowrun. It's been quite fun. But yeah, it's nice because I also can, set it up and play the arcade version of Hydro Thunder, which I really enjoyed, back in the day when I was traveling all over the planet. When you'd go to an airport and they'd have like the sit-down arcade version of it. So that takes me back a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to play Street Fighter 2 again, man. One of my favorite games of all time. I'll probably chat to you, Joe, actually, outside the podcast about what am I doing wrong with my EMU deck. But so my son has started university, which is great news. I thought that it would be useful for him to have a new laptop, but he's happy with the laptop that he has. But he was thinking about something to take notes on, and he had noticed that a couple of the other students were using iPads with Apple Pencils and stuff like that. So I had a Galaxy Tab in the house, ostensibly for work, but I didn't really use it that much. So I gave that to him. And I bought myself a Xiaomi Pad 7, which is a much more recent device run by Xiaomi. It has this interesting workstation mode, which is a bit like the new iPad OS, where you can window apps and things like that, make it a lot more like a workstation. You might think, why did I just give a laptop to someone and then buy another laptop? Well, apart from the fact that I'm an idiot, I do actually use the pens and things a lot when I'm making notes, whether I'm making notes in my classes, whether I'm making notes in my teaching, whether I'm making notes for, clinical notes or whatever, for work. And so after I gave it to him, I thought to myself, actually, I do need something for myself. So that's why I bought that, which then made me start thinking about, like we were talking a little bit earlier about HTC phones, and we've often talked about retro in inverted commas, technology. There was a lot of stuff that can pass us by the first time round. Like, for example, I always wanted a HTC One, M7, M8, M9, whatever those were, but I never had them at the time, for whatever other reason. Similarly, for example, I'd never had say a Sony laptop, for example. So I started thinking, this stuff, people must be getting rid of not old 80s, 90s, but old 2000s, early 2010s stuff as well, because we are 2025. So I managed to find a HTC One M7 for £20 on eBay. So I've decided to buy that, just so that I can say I've had an HTC One 7. And now I'm looking around for a Sony Vaio, because I never had a Sony Vaio when they existed.
Oh, I wanted one of those so bad, and they were so cool.
I know.
So far ahead of their time, and here they run like garbage because of the software.
Yeah, but then, hey, Linux, man! We can put Linux on it. Yeah. Make it brilliant again. So that's my latest thing. And just one last thing. I can't believe it's taken me this long to find out of Revanced. I can't believe I didn't know what Revanced was until Joe mentioned it the other day.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many times have I mentioned Revanced?
I just can't believe Yeah, well, anyway, that was a geek fail for me. Now I've got it. Now I think it's fantastic. I don't understand how it's legal. I'm sure you'll probably get shut down, but at the moment, it's brilliant, and I like it. And that is my wanderings done.
Explain what Revanced is for those who don't know.
Okay. So tell me if I'm doing this accurately, Joe, right? So Revanced is a framework with which you can apply patches to the APK files of Android apps so that you can add or subtract features from it. So for example, you could get the YouTube app, which is the standard APK. The Revanced patches will change the code in that app so that you don't see any ads, for example. You can do background play, etc., etc. And that's it. That's literally it. Yeah. And that's my point about I don't understand how it's legal, because you're messing around with someone's proprietary software. But hey, if it's around, I'm going to use it. Was that correct,
accurate.
Joe?
That's accurate.
Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, you're using it as a YouTube client, is your primary use. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So there's a couple. There's a couple of them.
You're using the actual APK. Yeah, there's more than one.
Using the APK, and there's more than one. What Revanced does is it allows you to apply patches to that APK, right? So to that, what would be in the Windows world an exe file or a deb file on Linux or on Ubuntu or something like that. So the APK, so it alters the app that you've downloaded. Right, so you do have to download the APK separately, not through, say, Google Play or something. Using another kind of app store. In F-Droid would be one, I suppose, but you can just download APK Mirror and all these other kind of third-party side-loading stores which Google might be getting rid of. And then, as I said, so it applies. Now, the most common ones are around YouTube, but there's ones for Spotify, YouTube Music, all these other things. The reason why there's dubious legality is because you, as part of the terms and conditions for a lot of these apps, you're not allowed to mess with their source code, and in a sense, you are messing with the source code. So apparently, the project used to be called Vanced first, and then that got shut down, and now it's Revanced.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you all know I've mentioned SmartTube many times. For those of us on Fire TV. That's the bomb. So I haven't had a chance or need to mess around with Revanced, but I'm glad there are solutions.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I use most of the time. I use YouTube. I use it on phones and stuff. I do once in a while cast, because I've got a Chromecast, some YouTube videos to my TV, but I don't necessarily. I have thought about SmartTube. After you mentioned it, I thought to myself, maybe I should get SmartTube and put that on my TV and stuff like that. And then, so I do it so rarely that it's not really worth the hassle.
I love watching YouTube on my TV, just like it's TV. I rarely watch on my phone.
I mean, there are some things like, if anything's like a 20, 30-minute kind of episodic program. So for example, I follow kind of like some of these kind of religious channels, and there'll be like, religion for breakfast and things, these esoterica, these kinds of things, which go real into deep dives of, different academic pursuits around the history of religion and the history of history. So I have on occasion put them on and watch them as TV, just as if I was watching a TV program. But it's not a common thing for me to do. Do you know what I mean? So it's that's the reason why I haven't got around to it. But maybe I should actually check it out.
I'm curious, when you watch a Linux podcast that's not this podcast or one that you're on, I don't know if you watch any others just for enjoyment. Do you do it on your phone?
So most stuff I watch on my phone. Yeah. Now I don't actually watch many other Linux podcasts, because the other podcasts that I listen to, like Late Night Linux or whatever, they're not video feeds. They're just audio only. They might have an equalizer on or something like that, but it's not people sitting together. I mean, there were a couple that I used to listen to that were kind of Jupiter Broadcasting, like Linux Action Show and stuff like that, but they annoy me. I'm sorry. They're just, I've fallen out of love with them, put it that way.
You mean you don't like the bubbly, always positive, always happy?
Always happy
American.
And always ready to tell you about Ting, the most fantastic mobile network in the.
Ooh, Ting!
That ad
wow,
stuff
it's
is
been a while.
They
annoys
moved
me.
on from mattresses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm
back
not
in the day, it was
derail
like-
but yeah, for me, if it's video, I want it on a big screen. Almost.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the content is.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I just find it ironic that, not on purpose, but I now seem to have got into the situation where the best screens in my house are on my tablet, my laptop, or my phone. And my TV actually seems a little bit pedestrian. Do you know what I mean? Because I remember me and my wife were watching The Girlfriend on Amazon Prime, and she was like, "Oh, put it on the TV," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it looks better on my tablet on the bed." I don't know why you want to watch it on that for. Anyway, but hey, everybody's different. Everybody's got their own thing. Sport, I like watching on the big screen. I do watch sport. So when I was watching the cricket match today, the India-Pakistan match, and I haven't been watching any football because Man United are terrible again. Before Joe makes a joke about it. But yeah, I do watch that on the big screen. Anyway, I think we better move on.
Noticed that in most households, or at least in my household, the TV used to be the place where people congregated. But since everybody's got a screen in their hand now, I hardly ever see anybody.
In general. Just hardly see anybody in it. Yeah, it's like, do they exist in the house? Are they here?
Yeah.
I think young people have a much easier time. Young people, I mean, people all the way up to Majid's age are really.
Me and Joe are the same age. What are you on about?
Yeah.
He can't believe it because I'm so much prettier than you.
I know, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, you didn't almost die a couple of months ago, though, did you?
Yeah, I almost died a couple of years ago, but hey.
Yeah, exactly. So you've recovered in it, and I haven't. Anyway,
well, I'm saying, I think young people.
I reckon we need to get to Bill's wanderings because I need to take the piss out of him for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Majid was talking about Image a little while ago, and I got that up and running. And I got to tell you, that is a fantastic Google photo replacement. All right, that's the end of my shilling for it.
I just don't know how you got it to work and I didn't.
Well, because I'm doing it right. I'm using Google.
Opinionated.
I'm using the thing that the
instructions
are built.
You're trying to get yourself onto the Linux kernel list or something. Gonna have Linus on his speed dial.
But
and
you go
on the other one.
I think it's true though. You go and you look at the instructions on how to set these things up. It's always really meant to be ran on bare bones server distro. Insert here. Whether it's Fedora or Ubuntu server or what have you.
It's basically a Ubuntu server, isn't it?
And
Ubuntu rules a lot of this.
I think so. I think so because you're going to have all of the framework that you need right there, ready to go. It's built to run cloud-based stuff. It's built to run containerized workloads. I mean, it's just perfect for it. And once you get the stuff set up and running, you know it's just working. I've not had any trouble with anything I've set up in years on these machines. And in fact, I set up a third server. It's not with these two. It's down below. It's identical to one of them. It's a Lenovo ThinkCentre M92P, which is ancient by like desktop standards, but I mean it works fine. I've got 32 gigs of ECC RAM in it, which that was a labor of love figuring out, just the right RAM. Moss, thank you very much, helped me find the right RAM for the machine, and it works great. I've got a pool of 2 Seagate Iron Wolf drives in that one, just like the other one, 2 terabytes each, and they're running a mirrored ZFS pool, which originally I set up with the Nextcloud all-in-one image, because what had happened was we gave my daughter a phone, her first phone, and she had exhausted.
What did you give her?
It was my wife's old S10 Plus.
Oh, okay.
So
good phone.
We upgraded her to an S11 Plus, and then just recently she got a brand new S25 Plus. Not long after I got my S25 Ultra. Well, they both filled up their free Google storage for photos, because as most would be aware, Google is not giving you free storage for your photos anymore, and it's understandable why. And I needed to come up with a solution for that, because I was not going to pay Google for more photo storage. Not just because I don't want to give them money, but when you put your photos on Google, you're not getting back the photos that you took. You're getting back a compressed, somewhat changed.
No, I mean you can't.
Amazon doesn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if there's an option specifically for when you're uploading to photos. Do you want to do it in compressor? Do you want to do the full thing, except taking into account that if you do it at full quality, it's going to use up your storage more.
Right.
So I mean,
I wasn't aware of that, but I just didn't want to, and I didn't want to go to Amazon, because that rug can be ripped out from under you just as fast as Google ripped theirs. And I will never, now that I know how to set this stuff up and get it running, I will never tie myself down to some platform that can pull the rug out from under you when, 20 years from now when we got...
And then his hard drives start going bad.
Well, I know how to fix that, it's a little bit of money. It's a lot of money. Some of these hard drives are upwards of $400 a piece, but that's...
Yeah, we should call this self-hosted cast, shouldn't we?
I mean, that's where the interesting stuff is, I think, right now, because we all, Linux. I'm not saying Linux is stagnated on the desktop, but I mean that's
it hasn't stagnated, but it's become our everyday.
Yeah.
So it's a little boring for us.
Yeah, for us, yes, for us
Right.
as nerds.
So I thought, okay, my first thought was, let's get Nextcloud up and running. They'll have someplace else to back up their photos, and fine, it works. You get the Nextcloud app on their phone, and it backs up the photos. It's not the most. It's not like. It's not something that's like meant for. It doesn't have the family approval factor, really, for backing up photos and sharing them with people and giving them to you in like a photo album fashion. So I got to thinking about Image, and Image literally looks like Google Photos when you've got either the website up and running or the client, and it's got good integration, and it is the level of. This was built by somebody who basically he had the same priorities I did. He needed to make something that had the wife approval factor, and he absolutely did. He and the other people that are working on this project. I can't say enough nice things about it, and he's constantly developing, constantly adding new features, and I think it's on the level that it needs to be. So I switched over to that. I've still got the Nextcloud running on the machine, but as far as backing up the family's photos, I've switched everybody over to image. Well, except for my two sons. They don't take any photos at all. They're not the type. But image. So if you're willing to put in a little bit of learning to get Docker up and running, I got to also say the documentation is
it is good documentation.
It is, because it seems like it was written by somebody. I mean, I'm not criticizing at all, and I really hope this doesn't sound bad, but a lot of documentation was not originally written in English. And there's a level of there's nuance that gets skipped, especially for Americans that are used to hearing things in a certain way, so that we know, don't do this until you do that, that kind of thing. And you can tell.
I don't think I don't think it's because it's not written in English initially. I think it's because it's written by nerds, and nerds are all a bit slightly autisticy, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
a bit on the spectrum, and so.
But I mean, when I'll use Nextcloud as an example. That is, a lot of that is written by Germans, and Germans are very technical people, and they don't have a lot of problem understanding exactly what they're talking about. But there's also some projects, there's this level of assumption that they have for the people that are, they assume that if you're going to go through the process of installing something like this, that there's a lot, they assume a lot of understanding on the part of the user, on the part of the person.
Yes, that's very true. I noticed that with the Jellyfin, when I was doing Jellyfin stuff.
Yeah.
That there was it was like, you should know this already. And I'm like, what, huh?
And it can come across as gatekeeping to some people, but, there is some logic behind it.
We do know that you're a rank elitist, aren't you?
I am. I'm an absolute elitist. I want all these new people to just
go away.
Off
your lawn.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm really happy with the image, and I'm gonna keep working with that, and if there's anything to talk about in the future with it, I'll mention it, as long as I never have any trouble with it. Like I said, it's on the ThinkCenter M92P. I actually bought like several of these things because you can get them on. This one I bought for like $36. You can get them on. You can get them on Amazon for really, really cheap, especially if they're missing hard drives or RAM or whatnot, and they're perfectly fine for a server workload. Okay, so moving on to this machine. I just yesterday did a complete nuke and pave, partially because I wanted to have a fresh install of 22.2, but ostensibly because I knew I needed to do a BIOS update, because my BIOS was on version F.15, and the HP website had F.38 available to download, so I was pretty well behind on that, and I was convinced that was what was causing another problem I was having, where I bought an Intel Arc GPU, and I wanted to use that because of the QuickSync capabilities built in to use for OBS Studio, so that I could use hardware acceleration. And as it was, when I put that Arc card in and try to run it, it wouldn't even post. So I assumed that it was a BIOS thing, updated the BIOS, tried the card again, card still doesn't work. So now I'm pretty positive that it's a AMD versus Intel thing, because there's absolutely no reason, because it actually consumes less power than the Radeon Pro card that I've got plugged into it now consumes. So back to the Radeon Pro I go. It's fine. I started with Windows, like I said, because I could not get the BIOS to upgrade with... normally I'll use FreeDOS on a thumb drive. Just throw the BIOS executable onto that thumb drive and then boot from that. You got to turn your UEFI into legacy boot, but it works fine, and you can update your BIOS. But for some reason, this particular BIOS needed Windows to execute the BIOS executable, and I think that was because it needed to. There was 2 or 3 stages that it went through to install the BIOS, and I think it needed some extra functionality within Windows to do it. I don't know, but that's why I installed Windows. I've got a 2 terabyte NVMe in this machine, so I've got plenty of space to put 2 operating systems, but it's a little irritating to have to do that, but it was also eye-opening.
You just prefer Windows.
What's that?
You just prefer Windows.
Well, let me tell you something.
I mean, we all know that you're a real Windows shill, and this is what you really want, and you don't care about free and open source at all, do you? Yeah?
Let me tell you. I got Windows up and running, and just out of curiosity, I thought, well, let's install a couple things that I usually use on Mint and see how much better it performs on Windows. First of all, the AMD Pro video drivers that you've got access to on Windows that give you the full functionality of the video card that everybody raves on about the open source AMD drivers for the video cards. Oh, it's great and all. But you get the AMD Pro driver on Windows, and you get better frame rates. You get, but the best thing is you fire up OBS Studio, and it recognizes the hardware acceleration that's built into the AMD card that I spent money on but can't use in Linux, and that is
well, maybe you should have done your research before buying that AMD.
Well, I did, but the research led to you have basically, if you want hardware acceleration, you've got your choice between the quick sync on the Intel cards, which clearly don't work on this AMD chipset motherboard. The NVIDIA, you've got a thing on NVIDIA called NVENC, which works fine, but how could I sit here and talk my smack about the Vivaldi driver when I'm running an NVIDIA card in my machine?
Yes, I know. Yes, yeah. Hypocrisy did come to mind. Mr. Stallman.
I do not understand for the life of me why we do not have access to the same sort of functionality that...
Well, I bet the bigger distros, the ones which have got a company behind them, such as like Ubuntu or RHEL, they're probably going to be a bit closer to that kind of functionality. Now, remember that Mint is not a company distro, and not only that, it's not even based on the latest version of Ubuntu or the latest Linux kernel. So how exactly is Mint going to get that functionality?
You can go to the AMD website, and there is an AMD Pro driver for Ubuntu 24.4, and you download it and you install it on Mint, which is supposed to be based on 24.4. It installs just fine. It's got a strange way of installing because you get a deb when you download it, but then you have to execute AMD GPU -install tac use case equals workstation to get the Pro driver, which installs. And great, you get the EULA, you sign it, and you say, "Yep, great," and then you reboot the computer, and it takes you right to the shell. It absolutely does not work on Mint. Now, there is another version of the driver for 20.04, which I've not tried, but the Pro driver for Linux that is for Ubuntu itself does not install, and that's what I was wanting to see if I could get that Pro driver.
You know what would be interesting, genuinely, and I'm not just saying this just to kind of trigger you. Why not put on the 25.04 Ubuntu, more recent, got all this kind of stuff, get that driver, see if it works, just as a kind of experiment to see. Because then you'll know whether the problem is a Linux problem, a Mint problem, an AMD problem. Do you know what I mean?
I was wondering if it was a Wayland thing, if it's just that because Ubuntu has moved on from X.
Yeah, Ubuntu is basically Ubuntu is Wayland by default, while Mint is still X by default.
So that's why I was thinking about going back to the 20.04 driver and trying that. I've not done that yet. But why is that driver not in the driver manager for, that's how you would get your proprietary NVIDIA blob to get all that stuff up and running.
Ask Clem then, innit?
But moreover than that, why don't we have the hardware acceleration in the AMD Radeon driver that we have access to through the kernel? And it can't be a matter of it being proprietary, because to the best of my knowledge, QuickSync is proprietary, and we have that functionality through the Mesa driver. So
I think you should write a strongly worded letter of complaint to Robert Stallman and Linus Torvalds.
Oh, yeah. Those would be the two people that would care the most.
Yeah, exactly.
But, so yeah.
No, but I do get you. I mean, joking aside, I do get what you mean. But then that's kind of par for the course for the thing that we're into, isn't it? We're into things which are a bit hobbyist, which are run by communities, which are run by people who are doing this out of their spare time or whatever, and so there is going to be a lack of polish, isn't there? I mean, in one sense you could argue it's amazing that it's as good as it is, some of it.
And I got to thinking today when I was playing around with Windows and how just beautifully all these things work, and
that's because you only used it for a day. If you used it for any longer, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay, there is that. But then I just got to thinking. Look at the sacrifices we make for our ethics when it comes to computing, when it comes to the sharing of ideas and technology and things like that. Or that is what Linux means to me. Is just at the end of the day, we're making an ethical decision, or what we believe to be an ethical decision with the things that we use, the tools that we use. We're using something that's built to share ideas and try to make the world a better place.
If you stand for something, and especially if you stand for something that's noble and good, expect difficulty.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an old Arab saying, and that's true, isn't it? Yeah. The path to heaven is not full of roses. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
So, and I can come up with a whole bunch of other kind of metaphors or cookie crumble type of things. You're right. I think and it's frustrating, but then I think that's the price that we pay, and we're happy to pay not happy. We will live with that. We will live with that rather than going back, because as as someone who, I try to be pragmatic. I don't try to be fundamentalist about these kinds of things. But when you do go back to using Windows for a bit, or you use Mac OS or something, you think to yourself, why the hell would anybody want to do this crap? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But hey ho. Anywho, I think we've waxed lyrical about that in our wandering.
Well, I was just going to real quick
Yep.
to bring it all the way around. I do have other machines that I built, and I've got an Asus motherboard with I think it's a 7th gen i5. It's the Skylake.
Okay.
And it's about the mid-range i5 for the Skylake, and it's got some pretty good hardware on it, and the Arc GPU runs beautifully on that machine that I built. So I've ordered the top-of-the-line i7 processor for the Skylakes. And when it comes, I'm going to replace that i5 with the i7 and see how well it holds up to the stuff that I do on this Ryzen 7. And it might be, I may or may not choose to switch over to that machine in the future just so that I've got that functionality. Now, all that being said, the reality here is that I am using hardware acceleration right now to make this show, but it's using the video acceleration API, which I should be happy to use. But I just want the choice, I guess. This is the open source method of using video acceleration on any kind of video card, just using a certain type of generic API to basically do the same things that the CPU would do, except I'm doing it on the GPU just to offload. So I should be happy about that. But it's not like I'm living without the whole thing altogether. It's just that it just felt like I was not getting everything I paid for out of that piece of equipment. But I think Majid said it best a little bit ago. But anyway, that's all I've got.
Okay then, so on to vibrations from the ether. And we do have some vibrations. So Stan Reichart, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, sent us an email at mintcast@mintcast.org. Just connected to the website again after a few months. Seeing the roundtable sessions listed separately, I do like them, and the way that they will make the regular sessions flow better. Hoping there will be sessions dedicated to wanderings. I really like hearing things that Joe and the others do fixing and soldering, despite the fact that I haven't soldered anything in 40 years or so. I would prefer OGG formats, but my old Moto G6 will only do MP3. What I do is rename all downloaded files using YYY, so the year, month, and then date format in the name, which is the correct way of doing things. That helps me sort things and frequently reminds me to check for new postings. I think 2025-09-20 reads faster than 09-20-2025, which is also wrong because only you guys in America do month, day, and then year. Nobody else in the entire world does it. But anyway.
We live for the moment, Majid.
That's not true. I believe the military, when I was in the Navy, did year, month, day, but it's been 35 years, but I believe the military uses the European method, but anyway.
The correct method, yes.
That must be why I don't do it anymore.
You deem it correct, but, we'll move on.
Yeah, I'm just poking. All right, and
I answered
Bill
him
replied.
back,
Yeah, so go on, Bill. Time to shine, Hauser.
Gosh, so easy to do these days. I responded, Stan, thanks for the feedback. We are bouncing around ideas at the moment. I think what we're going with right now is to do wanderings every other episode. We are struggling a little bit with a concept of recording a 3-hour show, so some whittling down needed to be done. You can download the OGGs from archive.org, which is where we host all of our final audio files. The MP3, the OGG, and a PDF of the show notes are all included. applications like VLC will play them nicely, and VLC is on the Play Store. You can install that on any Android or iOS. I assume iOS. I will take into consideration your advice about the date format. You're probably right. For people that are keeping track of them, having them order first by year, then month, and finally by day is probably more desirable method to keep them organized. Again, thanks for the feedback. We will feature this on our next episode, which we are doing right now. Reach out to us as often as you like. We love to hear from our listeners. Sincerely, Bill. And yeah, I probably don't talk about that enough, but I do make an MP3 and an OGG of every episode. It's just that the OGG just has to sit on archive.org, and if you want that, you got to go get it yourself, because the podcast feed management thing that we use on our website only handles MP3s. It can only put MP3s
We used to have OGG. We used to have an OGG feed and an MP3 feed. I thought we quit doing the OGG.
I don't know if Blueberry used to accept OGGs back then, or if it was a separate way of handling it.
Yeah, there was something that happened where even our OGG feeds were just downloading the MP3. I don't remember exactly. It's been a few years now.
Yeah. So yeah, and it is scriptable to go and I know people have done it. They've scripted it to automatically download OGGs from the website or from archive.org. I could probably put an OGG player in each page.
I don't. Look, MP3 is now open source too, so I don't know if there's a
I don't know that it's open source, but it's not patent encumbered at all. I don't know that it's fair to say, because there's no attribution involved with it whatsoever. But yeah, I don't know. I think some people just don't want to use anything that's ever been proprietary.
Yeah, I think, that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about, the FOSS ethos and stuff like that. And so, it would, in a sense, make sense to try and use the open source tools as the first citizen, rather than anything else. Just going a bit back about the structure of the show. We are finding our feet. I think our first initial plan was, yes, we didn't want to have 3-hour shows because it's difficult, for all of us, your Sunday goals, and it's a lot to ask for people, and people have got lives. So, one of the first ideas was we'll have a news episode, and then followed by that, the next one will be like an innards episode, and have the wanderings on the round table. I think it then became clear that there's lots of things we can talk about, but you want to be able to talk about and get in depth into stuff that you actually give a shit about, things that really interest you and stuff like that. And there was a perception that maybe some of the innards topics that we were choosing were just because, we need to have an innards. We just need to have something that we're going to talk about in depth.
No, you guys just didn't like the innards that I was picking, and I was the only one picking there for a little bit. You found it boring. I found it awesome.
Okay. To be honest, I find most of them quite interesting, actually, to be fair.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, but I am also aware that, whoever, it becomes more work, because generally it's one person has got the more interest in that specific thing. Once I remember I was talking about cloud encryptions and stuff. Obviously, Joe's done stuff about Proxmox and stuff. And there's been lots of innards stuff. So
I feel like people space off when I start talking about servers, and then I wonder if people do that when.
No, that's just you. That's just you talking in general, Bill.
Yeah.
No. Some people aren't going to be as interested in your topic as you are, but then again, some people are. So you can't please them all of the time.
Yeah. Well, it's like all things, isn't it? You can't please all the people all the time, isn't it? So you just try and do the best. And I do think quality is better than quantity, And so it seems that we've kind of moved to let's do news one week, let's do Wanderings the next episode, and then if during that time one of us says, you know what, or even a couple of us think, you know what, let's have a look at this specific thing, then we can do maybe like an innards once a month, that kind of thing. This is just, as I said, the direction of travel. It's nothing set in stone, but so people who are listening, do let us know what you think. We are the People's Podcast. We're not communists, but we are. This is a community podcast.
Yes, we are absolutely community. What I would love to do is talk about what you, the listener, tell us to every week. If you tell
exactly.
If we had a steady stream of that going on, where people are letting us know, because we mean it when we say, if you hear something you want to hear about, let us know, and we will do the research on it and we will talk about it. And I'd love to make that a normal thing. As it is, that's not been happening really, and that's me not complaining. That's just, it's tough to come up with things that are not, because Joe could probably talk about 3D printing and Proxmox every week if you wanted him to, and I could talk about Nextcloud and Ubuntu server and whatnot every week.
And I can talk about Android phones and mobile operating systems.
But we had a pretty good episode in regards to 3D printing, and we had a pretty good episode in regards to Proxmox, and a pretty good episode in regards to beginner command line Linux, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. It's just coming up with one of those for every 2 weeks has been a difficulty. And we'd like ideas, but not only, we receive ideas, but then it also has to be something that we can do or able to get in the time frame.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me about, important bash commands, then it would be a very short innards, because I know very little about it.
rm/rf.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this is the conversation that we want to have with all the listeners, with all you guys. Let us know what you think. This is what this is what we've got as an idea.
I wanted to have some flexibility in the workflow, because we could have a plan, and this could happen. It's not likely to happen, but this could happen, where we plan to have an episode and then something crazy breaks in the news that just demands our attention, and we need to put that off and talk about this thing, instead. Flexibility is not easy for everybody. And I fear that that's probably pushed a non-zero number of people away.
I love this non-zero. Brilliant.
But it almost feels necessary. But at the same time, I don't want to push anybody away, and I honestly felt like the 3-hour show was making it hard.
One more thing I want to say here. Look, if you don't want to be like a permanent cast member or whatever, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to come on and you have your subject and you want to do an innards that's all about your subject, and we will have you.
Yeah. We have astonishingly low standards. I mean, I'm on this, for God's sake.
Yeah.
No, but joking aside, I mean, we're more than happy for anybody who wants to come in and talk about something. Come on, man. Come on. Teach us what we're doing wrong.
mintCast is a fantastic place to get, whether you just have one thing to talk about or you honestly want to get started in podcasting. mintCast is a great place to start off with that. It's where I got started, and I'm still excited to sit here and talk about Linux. I can't believe I'm actually.
You want to come on here and spend an hour talking about Arch and telling Bill how he's doing everything wrong with his servers?
Oh God, I'd love that. I'd listen to that. I'd have that on repeat. Damn right.
Bring somebody on that can do this stuff better than me. I dare you. I dare you. I implore somebody out there to come on here and show me how it's done. Right on.
Anywho, let's move on to check this out. Now, actually on the check this out anything on the show notes, but I should have put a couple of those launchers that I was mentioning to Jim earlier, like Smart Launcher and Hyperion Launcher.
And Jim had two things that should have been.
Yeah,
in check
yeah,
Yeah,
out
I
right.
was just going to say the
Yeah,
same
Jim.
thing.
Yeah, and Jim's, Libera and stuff like that. Those would also be stuff that we could put in. Check this out. So, lot of Android apps for people to look into. Cool. Time for a bit of housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something you think we should be talking about, as we just said, tell us. Email us, mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the subreddit, although to be fair, I don't think anybody's checked the subreddit for a bit. But where you can definitely chat with us is on Discord. We're all on the Discord and we're all chatting away. Our next episode will be 2 p.m. US Central Time, Sunday, October the 12th. And there's a link to get that converted to your time zone in the show notes. Next Saturday will be the Roundtable live stream. Please come and join us on our Discord voice channel at 2 o'clock US Central Time, Saturday, October the 4th, 2025. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. Wrapping up, go ahead, Joe.
Well, if you like the sound of my voice, I'm on a couple other podcasts. I'm on the Linux Link Tech Show, which is at tllts.org. I'm on the Linux Lugcast, which is linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org, or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. Moss, who couldn't be here with us today, he has a couple of links in the show notes. He's doing Full Circle Weekly News. You can send him an email, moss@bodhilinux.com. He's on Mastodon at Zyvola@hostux.social, and he occasionally puts a show up on HPR. Bill?
Well, you can email me. I'm bill@mintcast.org. I'm at wchauser3@fosstodon.org. And also check out Linux OTC. I do that show with Eric and Majid, and I have been on Three Fat Truckers. Links to both of those in the show notes. Majid?
So you can email me at drmajid@mintcast.org. I do have a Mastodon at atypical_doctor@mastodon.social. You can get me on Atypical Doctor on Instagram and Threads, and also have my own podcast, the Atypical Doctor Podcast, which is atypicaldoctor.com. And as Bill has alluded to, I'm on Linux OTC with him and Eric. Eric couldn't be with us today, but he can be reached by email at eric@mintcast.org. Charles?
Yes, I can be reached at charles@mintcast.org and on Discord at Mr. PDX.
Jim?
And I could be reached at jim@mintcast.org if they set it up eventually. And and I am GNU to Linux on the mintcast Discord. And then I do an occasional podcast of my own at the Linux Shortcut on YouTube.
So before we leave, we want to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. We thank Bill for his audio editing and for hosting server, which runs the website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server. Archive.org for hosting our audio files. Hopstar for our logo. InnerRD for the animated Discord logo. Londoner for our time syncs and various other contributions. He's always great at finding news articles for us. And of course, the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about.
Thanks,
Clem.
Thanks, Clem.
And Co.
And Co.
And that's a wrap.
Thanks, everybody.